All right. So 7:01, I'm going to call to order of the Monday, March 3rd, meeting of the Green Committee in the Lunenburg Green Committee. Got a little bit of junk to read here. Following information is also provided for members of the public that would like to participate in the meeting remotely. Participate remotely, there is a public Zoom link from a telephone. You can dial in. If you want to be recognized and want to just talk, either raise your hand or if you're on a phone to dial 9. The agenda that we had posted listed all the topics which may be discussed at the meeting, and there are which may be discussed in the meeting and are on those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by open meeting law. Okay, that was my big speech here. So I got folks drifting in here. Let me go back to showing my participants so I can see when other folks drift in and things like that. All right. I got Alex, I got Justin. Okay, excellent. Excellent.
Hi there, everyone.
Okay. Okay. So, next thing for me, I'm going to skip over. I'm going to go directly to you guys and let you enjoy your evening if you want.
Appreciate that.
As we do all the fun stuff that town meetings are all about. So as the team knows, we talked about it last time. One of the things that Unitil is offering through the Mass Save program is a energy audit of town municipal buildings. So we are in desperate need of this as we look to try to do what's next. We've managed to do the HVAC. We have got the green grant for the HVAC for the primary school. And as the town decides what they're going to do with Turkey Hill, we felt it was important that we make sure that it stays a very viable building and moves into the 21st century. Not just 21st century. I'll leave it at that. And then the public safety building is probably one of the flagship buildings, but we need to definitely make sure that that stays going. So Matt has invited with us with Ilsa. Ilsa is Alex and Justin. I assume you're with Ilsa, or are you town?
Yeah, we can do some very quick introductions. My name is Ilsa. I'm one of the program managers for our heat pump support team. We help with the commercial side of our implementation. And then Alex is one of our specialists who will be kind of delivering the meat and potatoes of our heat pump consultation this evening. And Justin is with our team as well on the residential as well as the commercial side. So thank you for letting us all kind of tag along here. Alex, maybe we can set the stage just for a minute and then I'll hand it over to you by just talking about what the consultation is. The consultation is the kind of beginning conversation of our assistance that is designed to really meet our customers no matter where they are in the process. It sounds like for the school, we're kind of on the just getting started page of just starting to think about options, but thinking through kind of HVAC replacement and heat pumps, as well as talking through kind of other associated considerations with weatherizing your building as you prepare for heat pumps for further electrification and what might be involved in that. So part of this will be kind of asking some questions to do some intake to discover where the building is. And you may or may not, I'm not sure if this group has all of the information. If not, that's okay. We could, of course, follow up with the facilities team for it. But we're also going to talk through kind of what may be involved and things to consider, especially for getting started and getting quotes from contractors. But Alex, I'll hand it over to you if you want to go ahead and get us started.
That sounds great. Thanks, Ilsa. And I'm gonna share my screen and share with you this consult report, which will be, oh, maybe I can't. I apologize. I'm not used to this Zoom platform. It says host disabled participant screen sharing. I don't know if that's something.
Hold on, bear with me here. Enable request. Remove purpose. No. No, that's not doing it. Bear with me a second. I'm not that familiar with this either, so. Oh, here you go. There you go. Boom.
All right, great.
It's the only, it was the only one that wasn't checked. I saw all these checks and I said, oh, we're all set, but oh, well.
No worries. All the platforms and different things. So we'll be sending this report to you, and it's got a bunch of useful links in it. We always start by recommending that you look into weatherizing the building first of all. It will delay the heat pump project, but it sounds like this is a big project that is planned to take a little while anyway. And I'm not sure, and we can check if it's any different. Elsa might know for municipal buildings, but typically the weatherization program is 70% covered by utilities, by your utility, Unitil in this case. And it starts with a no-cost energy assessment. Someone will come out and identify all the opportunities for energy saving in your building. Then they'll connect you with a contractor who will develop a scope. And it might take about 2 months to get to the point where you're ready to actually start the heat pump part of the program or the project. But what that will do is it lets you get that scope for what the future heat load of your building is. And so you can buy smaller equipment and then use less energy and save more money every year on after that. So we'll connect you with the correct people if you are interested in pursuing that. And then once you've got, if you do choose to or not, the first step will be to find a contractor. And there's this handy tool. There's a link right here. Let me ask, what is the address of the school? I don't have it in front of me. Oh, and I can't hear you, Dave. Sorry.
If I do that, it's on Northfield Road in Lunenburg. What the heck's the address again? 129 Northfield Road.
And what's the town and zip code? Sorry.
01462.
So with that.
And Alex, we may kind of expedite the full overview of the Find a Contractor tool just because we have a larger group here today.
Okay, great.
We can give kind of a quick overview. You know, we generally recommend getting 3 different quotes. Some of our customers have contractors they already work with, and that's certainly fine. But we may find differences between different quotes from different contractors, which is why we recommend having several. And one of our follow-up services that we can assist with as you get a little bit later into the stages here is doing a quote comparison. And what that is after you've collected a few quotes or maybe even a few different proposals from the same contractors, what we can do, and we ideally recommend you ask your contractor as well for a manual N, and a manual N is the commercial larger building equivalent to a manual J. So it's a heat load calculation. And what that will do, you may have a manual N from all contractors ideally, or for some of them, but we can evaluate that manual N and then compare the quotes against the manual N to make sure that the systems that there are, to evaluate the systems they're proposing and make sure that they're adequately sized, that the efficiency specs meet the requirements for the equipment against the MassSave qualified product list, which we'll talk about in a minute, and then that they're all eligible for rebates as well.
Yeah, definitely, and it's a really exciting project. You've got a huge campus here, and there's a lot that you can do. Even geothermal, if you're looking for, if you're able to, and you're looking for the best long-term solution for heating for the space, it would be very easy to to put in geothermal boreholes and even tie in a dual system that uses less boreholes and is able to heat the whole thing electrically, both from the air and the ground. So we'll find some contractors, we'll get some project proposals, and then once we work with you, if you choose to, and we get it all decided what contractor and what proposal to move forward with, then the first step will be this rebate commitment letter. All of those contractor proposals are going to have model numbers and specify the equipment that the contractors are planning to install. And you probably won't really need to look at it, but the contractors are going to look at this qualified products list, which is a big spreadsheet with all of the eligible equipment. And this is the main requirement of the program, is that you install eligible equipment. And to ensure that, the first step will be to fill out this form, and this is all just basic contact kind of information, and then the reference numbers for each of the heat pumps and all of the equipment that you choose, whether that's air sourced, a VRF, which is a larger, more advanced air source system, which is probably something you should look into, or a ground source, which is the best of all. And this letter will take about 3 to 6 weeks to turn around and come back. Maybe it will be much faster in your case, I'm not sure. But then it guarantees your rebate for 1 year after that. And it makes sure that whatever equipment is selected qualifies, and it'll be smooth sailing after that, at least as far as the rebate goes. And then that's mostly it for the rebate side of things. But we'll include a lot of information about system sizing and a whole bunch more information on different options in terms of what heat pump to choose, and whether you choose ducted or ductless delivery methods. Is there ductwork existing in the building? Does anyone know?
I believe there is. Yes, I believe there is.
Cool.
I'd assume so. So I don't know, Dave, if if you've had any conversations with the facilities team there. I know there's been turnover, but similar to the elementary school, right? There's a main kind of fresh air ventilation system that is tied to a boiler system. So I think it's a similar setup where that's how they're getting the heating delivered now. I don't know if there's central cooling today, Dave, or if you know that answer.
I don't think there is.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, so I'm assuming it's similar to what we saw at the elementary school, where they started to add some mini splits for cooling purposes without integrating it into the heating, and we're working, as Dave mentioned, on a Green Communities grant to do that for that facility, and that this would be kind of next up in line, that they probably follow the same pathway.
So Matt, this one doesn't even have the mini splits. This one's
No, understood. Getting ahead of it as
yeah.
Yeah.
The old system, the only benefit this school has, it has a large array of solar panels sitting on the roof. So at least we're better at generating electricity here.
Yeah, and I would say that, because we're getting ahead of the game as opposed to being a little more reactive with the last project that we worked on, it's, as Alex mentioned, there might be better opportunities for like a whole system as opposed to kind of how it was phased in at the other school. But likely with the ventilation system that's in place, having a VRF system, or even like Alex said, if there's an opportunity, the geothermal might be a better fit than doing kind of the piecemeal mini splits that went into the primary school.
Understand.
Absolutely. And one thing to mention, and that's great with the solar array that we noticed in the mapping software as well. With the geothermal system, as Alex mentioned, because thankfully for right now, at least the federal tax credits are available and would come to the school as a direct payment as opposed to a credit. So would be an additional 30% for eligible geothermal systems.
Cool. Okay.
So there are some different considerations um, between the different options. Typically, the ductless systems are a little bit more efficient. There's less losses
Right.
in getting the heat to you, but in terms of ventilation and air quality, there are good reasons also for the ducts, and that'll just be a matter of comparing the quotes and looking at the options. But you could scrap the ductwork entirely and go all mini split, but probably it would make sense to reuse it to some degree, whether that means a combination of mini split heads and the central ducts, or it'll really just be up to the contractors to see what makes sense to them, and then we can look at what they bring back to us.
Understand. And, so right, some of the challenges today is you could have two rooms next to each other. One of them says it's too cold. One of them says it's too hot. Okay. And that's the only reason why the mini splits look attractive. However, this is a system designed in I'm going to try to say 80s. So, who knows what's going on with that system. And we haven't had a good facilities person in the school for 6 years now. So.
Okay. Yeah, and as Alex mentioned, if you have the space within your project timeline to consider evaluating and implementing weatherization opportunities first, that will really go a long way in dealing with that kind of air leakage, especially if you to pinpoint kind of where it's coming from and in those kind of comfort and temperature imbalances.
Perfect.
Definitely. So as to the rebates themselves, there are some other considerations in terms of how much money you can get back. They're all run on a per ton basis, so that's 12,000 BTUs, and it goes by the cooling, and that's something that you can find on the spec sheets for the different equipment, which I'm happy to show to you if you like. And so here the regular air source heat pump is 2,500 per ton. And that's usually a good option. Although in your case, I think you're definitely going to want to look at the larger VRF systems, which have higher efficiencies over time, as well as a larger rebate. They are more expensive. And I think it's an important distinction that there's two different kinds. Or there's a VRF system and then a VRF heat recovery system. And the heat recovery one is much more advanced, and you're able to heat and cool simultaneously, and also things like recovering heat from wastewater as possible, from all the water that you drain down the drain, as well as heating your domestic hot water with your air conditioning, things like that. That may not make that might not be a huge selling point. How much use does the building get during the summer?
I'm gonna hesitate, but right now it's not. I don't think it gets a lot during the summer. However, though, there's thoughts on this building, so it's a matter of whether it stays as a school or not. That's going to be the big thing.
Gotcha.
It could end up being a town building eventually, which would expand its summer usage substantially.
Yeah, definitely. All right, well, that's definitely good to know. And yeah, there would be probably many more opportunities for heat recovery, as well as more AC load in the summer.
Right.
Also, there can be some challenges in geothermal when your loads are really imbalanced, when you have a lot more heating than cooling. Usually that's not that big of a problem though. Usually it's more skewed the other direction. And so finally, the geothermal is once again more expensive, but also once again, this is by far the most efficient over time. So the COPs, the amount of heat or cool that you get out of the air source heat pump, hopefully will be up around 3 for the cooling season and for the shoulder seasons, but it's probably going to drop down to 2 or even dipping down to 1 as it gets really cold outside. And the benefit of geothermal is that's always going to be like at least 3, 3.5 or 4, even higher potentially. And here the rebate is 4,500 per ton. I have no idea what the heat load currently is for the building, but it must be huge. I don't know.
Yeah, I used to have that number.
Estimated.
I looked and I couldn't find it. I apologize. It's,
Oh no, I'm just,
we,
I mean,
No problem.
we finally have a new facilities director. I think they started last Monday, so I had to give him a little time to breathe before dumping
Of course.
everything.
yeah,
And this again is kind of a preliminary conversation, so we can do kind of a more, once they're able to kind of get their feet under them and are able to kind of dig up records, do
Cool.
a more kind of fuller data intake.
yeah.
Yeah.
Would
No
we
hurry,
have a cost projection, a cost and performance projection available from the engineers before we can get started on this, and so we can look at all 3 options?
Yeah, so depending on the type that you're interested in, what we would recommend, and once you have contractors selected, so again, getting back to kind of the recommendation of selecting multiple quotes, but contractors can also make their own recommendations between system types, and Alex can answer questions. Contractors would be happy to kind of quote you on a few different systems, but with any of the recommendations, what you would have from them again, asking for that manual N is a comparison against the heat load calculations for the buildings to make sure that those systems are appropriately sized. And then we can talk about kind of costs that we ideally you from any one of your contractors would also have kind of a fully itemized cost consideration, at which point Alex will of course give you a breakdown for the systems proposed, what the eligible full incentive amounts will be by the system size.
All right, the ground source obviously makes the most sense. It's just, how does this look, at, the short-term costs, but also over time. Over time, it seems like it would be, absolutely the smartest decision, but is it in the budget?
And as part of that quote comparison, kind of next step reporting that we can do, part of that will be kind of a payback estimate for especially integrating the solar system that you have right now, looking at the cost, looking at kind of how the incentives play into it, both on the Mass Save level as well as the federal level, and what the difference in usage would be to pay back the system.
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, on that note, it would be good information too to find out what the net metering scheme is. Like, I imagine typically you make a lot less money selling power back than you use, and so especially if you have your own solar, electric heating could have a much shorter payback period.
Dave, could I interject a quick comment in regards to that?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Just be aware that the town has not managed its solar credits or its solar production credits correctly or efficiently for a number of years. So we have buildings with thousands of dollars of credit and other buildings paying $300,000 a year in electric costs.
Oh yeah.
And that's been under review for almost a year and still has not been sorted out. And part of the problem is that the arrays that are involved here or the sources of the power are multiple entities. So trying to, and from what I understand, reallocation is only allowed once or twice a year. So it took 6 months just to get a handle on what was where. And then slowly they're supposedly working on adjusting allocations. Just so you're aware.
Yeah, I wasn't thinking that it's a municipal building. I guess that could factor into it too, but only if you're able to offset easily to other buildings.
Right.
And the system on there is 106K,
Okay, yeah, that's helpful.
just to give you an idea.
106,
106,000 kilowatts, I think it is. Hold on, I
Okay.
can tell you exactly.
yeah. All right, cool. Good to know. Well, that's pretty much the end of what I typically go over with people. We know that your sponsor is Unidil, which is the only other part.
One thing to just add to that, Alex. So we're the electric sponsor. However, the gas service for this building. So Lunenburg's an interesting town. Depending on where you are in the city, you either get gas from Unitil or you get gas from National Grid. So this building will get National Grid gas. So from you mentioned kind of weatherization in
Right.
advance of doing anything for heat pump or electrification. So if you were to do a weatherization audit or to look to do some of that work, we would have you guys connect with National Grid for that process. But similar to what we did over at the primary school, the Green Communities, DOER's program will require weatherization anyway. So it's good to make sure that that's part of any project if it's going to go through the Green Communities grant.
Thanks, Matt. Yes, and I believe National Grid has a municipal rep for every city, so we can put you in touch with the Lunenburg rep to get started on the audit for weatherization opportunities as a next step.
No problem. Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And then in terms of kind of timing of how long that takes, I think that, when you do have a timeline for when the weatherization opportunities will be complete, in the meantime, this can be a good time, and Alex can kind of walk your facilities team or whoever else will be involved in kind of vetting contractors through that, using that tool and finding contractors that are part of our heat pump installer network to start getting in touch with and start getting some quotes from.
Okay, so I know we can go through a lot of things here. I'm going to just the easy things for us. All right. I mean, obviously I'm going to have, this is just a meeting, you're meeting with the green team, but the big things for us is to try to understand, timelines for things, because we're trying to push some folks along. So that's really what we're looking to, a lot of what I'm looking to understand is more the timelines.
Sure. Do you want to answer that, Elsa?
Oh, you go ahead.
Well, do you have is it like as fast as possible, or do you have specific deadlines in mind or anything?
I'll just say yes to both those. No, there's really not. The town, it's more of wanting to quickly provide information so that people can start making decisions.
Sure.
Okay.
That makes sense. We don't service the National Grid things, weatherization rebate programs. So I can't really speak to how quickly that could turn around, but you could schedule a no-cost energy assessment tonight or tomorrow. Tomorrow, I guess, when we get you the report. Elsa.
Yeah, and Alex, I'll just jump in and say, I don't think this will go through kind of the common route. We can put in touch directly with your National Grid municipal representative. As Alex mentioned, we can't speak exactly to their timeline, but ideally you should be able to get an audit in within the next couple of weeks. And then, how quickly they can turn around the weatherization project. I think will depend a lot on kind of what they identify and opportunities there. And of course, it won't be an all or nothing. There may be kind of different routes to select.
No, and that's perfect. I was really looking at your timeline, like, how long it takes for the audit process. If everything falls into place, the stars align, I can give you all of the building documentations you need and all that stuff. That's what I was really looking for because, like I say, that building I know for sure needs weatherization.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I know that's got to be done. And that's all part of capital planning. And as Mr. Passios will tell you, nothing's quick in this town when it comes to that.
Yes. Yeah.
So Dave,
Well,
I was going to ask a question on that. So what is that process within the town? So if you get your team is like, yeah, we're going to go get quotes on putting heat pumps in this building, and you got pricing, and Ilsa's team and Alex can kind of give you the best case scenario of these three proposals that you have that you want to take to the next level. You then take it to the superintendent, or where does that go? Or does that have to go for town voting? What's the process?
Actually, Mr. Passios, can I ask you to kind of step in on that one? Because you are much better at this than I am.
Yeah, Dave Passios, former resident of Lunenburg. I'm actually up in Jefferson, New Hampshire now, just so everybody knows. But I am still officially vice chair of this committee until May of 2026 at least. The capital planning process is, as I agree with a couple people that have tried to understand it over the years and disagreed with it, is pretty convoluted. The whole process starts in as early as August for the next fiscal year. And that's when the capital planning starts reviewing projects that have been submitted by the department heads to the town manager. And then a list is handed to capital planning committee. And then they go through a process of prioritizing, and then they interview department heads relative to those projects. So, you start in August and you're hoping that you have it sorted out. And capital planning's done with it within a couple of months. Then it's up to the town manager. And our charter gives the town manager wide control and responsibility and abilities to shuffle the projects around, knock them off the prioritized list, quite a number of things. And she or he ultimately determines, when she gets further into the budget process, how much money can be applied towards that list. And once that's done, then we know what projects made the cut and which ones didn't. And there are slight adjustments made all the way up to almost town meeting, because there are a lot of unknowns in municipal government budgeting because of the state and so on and so forth. So that's the basic process. The problem we've been having in Lunenburg with grant awards is that the grants have been applied for, I'm going to say, at the wrong time. Some of the grants that have been awarded had sunset dates on them that were fairly close to when they were awarded. And in one case, recently, the town turned back $1.6 million in grant money because they didn't have the money for the balance of the project. No fault of the committee really that applied for it, because nobody really put the dotted the i's and crossed the t's for them as to how you needed to time this. Green Communities grants were running into the same problem, but I'm waiting for a text message. Actually, from the meeting I was in just before I jumped back in here, to see what our solution is for the present grant that we've got awarded. There is a delta between the incentive and the $200,000 that we presently have. And there's a meeting going on right now to hopefully find a solution to that so that it allows us to get completed with the present grant round grant to be able to reapply in October. So in a nutshell, that's it. I believe we're going to see some changes in the way capital is approached over the next year, but I can't tell you for sure. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, so I guess let me throw this out. So if best case scenario, you would have quotes and at least an estimate on project installation costs by August, you would then be able to potentially go for a Green Communities grant as early as October. It would be some selection process over winter, spring by the town manager as to whether or not this is a project that's viable for next summer installation, and that would be the quickest turnaround.
I'd agree with that. Yes.
Yeah, I would also.
So to give Alex and Ilsa's team just, kind of some timelines and things like that, that as far as, data that we'll want to collect with your facilities team for the building, and then any follow-ups, that will kind of have that timeline in mind.
Yes. Yeah. That's helpful to know.
Yeah, just one other comment very quickly in that present capital planning process. During their prioritization, the members take into consideration a number of reasons why they move the project up the list personally. And one of them is applicability for grants. And especially if we have, if we're close to being ready to apply for the grant, or we have the packet put together, and the minute the additional funding is secured, and we can throw in that application, that's one of the things they look for, and they will move a project like that up the list.
Yeah, and I'll just say that the reason that this should be much more competitive than the primary school project, right? You're getting in ahead of time to get some of these things, and it would be designed in a way that it could be comprehensive, as opposed to kind of phased in the way that the primary school was put together. So it should be more competitive, where you'd be able to hopefully get Green Communities grant, as well as the rebates that Alex went over.
Yeah.
Right. I agree, Matt.
Right. And that's really what we're looking for, is that most of the time the project is the way that things have worked is that a certain entity in town will just go out and get a quote for a project, but they don't even know the scope. And this is really why we think that's the biggest thing that we got looking for you guys, is help with the scope of the project. What's going to make this the most successful project possible? And that's really where we need the help, because otherwise I'm going to listen to a contractor. One guy's going to tell you you need double pane windows. One guy's going to tell you need triple pane windows. And one's going to tell you need to just make a solid wall. So, who do you do? Do you do the cheapest contractor, or what do you do what's best for the long run?
Yes, absolutely. And to that end, I think, as Alex mentioned, you have different options between different types of heat pumps. Ultimately, a lot of that will come down to kind of preferences. But the most important thing that we can recommend is that any contractor that you get a quote from performs a manual N, and making sure that they have performed a proper heat load calculation will make sure that the system is properly sized. Because
Okay.
you do not want an undersized system, of course, or an oversized system ultimately will lead to kind of operational issues, to comfort issues. So, that I think is the most important factor, and why we recommend starting with the, find a contractor tool is that these contractors are part of the Mass Save Heat Pump Installer Network, and have been kind of held to that quality standard.
Okay, okay, perfect. So, I've just admitted a few folks into the meeting. They're from the school side, so the meeting group got even larger, than we had. But the biggest things for us, and I just want to just review with you guys, because this is very exciting for us. The other side is we want to do one of the town buildings. As I mentioned, we have the public safety building. This is with police, fire, and the jail. And, it was designed that the hot water source is on one corner of the building and the cells are in the most furthest section of the building from that. And so it's like, another inefficient building. And that's why we really want to look at that as well. But so as I'm understanding this, if all goes well, once we do all our paperwork and all that stuff, I'm going to say a couple of months for you guys to have the audit done. And that way, that would give us a document for the school, for the town, to be able to start looking at feasibility of the project, what's needed with weatherization first, and then what would needed to move forward with the heat pump. Because obviously we would have to do the weatherization pieces first before we even qualify for the heat pump side. Is that correct?
As part of your grant funding, it sounds like yes, and that is not a Mass Save requirement for commercial projects, but it sounds like it is a requirement for the green funding.
Yeah,
Okay, so if I didn't
for
want to
green
do
communities,
funding,
they
I could just
require.
move
Green
forward.
communities, yes.
Okay, all right.
Do they require it actually be installed first, or just?
They do not. So in
Yeah.
most cases, they'll require that weatherization be part of the grant request. So in the case of the primary school project, or our most recent projects that went in for Lunenburg this year, they had weatherization components to each of the facilities that were being looked at. So even though the primary school is one that there's not a lot of weatherization opportunities, we had to build in like a little bit of weather stripping and things like that, just to basically qualify for
The requirement. Okay.
equity.
And we can get that started first, depending on what they find, they may be able to kind of complete the project in a much faster timeline than that if it's just simple measures such as weather stripping. In any case, we can certainly get the process started as well with contractors and selecting quotes, and then evaluating the heat load calculation. And the quotes should be something that we can accomplish within, the span of just a couple of weeks. So meeting this timeline won't be a problem, and we can plan to kind of, depending on how much time the data intake needs, it shouldn't be, again, a question of more than a couple of months altogether.
Okay. And so this is real good for us. This is exactly the thing. So what would you need from us for next steps?
So for next steps, it sounds like we need to put you in touch with National Grid. So we can do that, as early as tomorrow, probably, to get connected to your municipal representative, and they can help the process started for evaluating for weatherization opportunities. At the same time, we can get the ball rolling with helping you find contractors. So Alex can, either by email or an additional follow-up call, plan to meet with you to show you again the kind of all the ins and outs of that find a contractor tool, and for evaluating contractors that service your area. Again, it's ultimately up to you how many quotes you get, but we generally recommend 3, and that may be some part of some contracts that they require three bids. Contractors can quote you on, a variety of systems as well, if you would like to consider, say VRF and alongside ground source heat pump systems. But you can evaluate for contractors that offer those types as part of the tool as well. And then once you have your quotes, we can get the ball rolling. We will, Alex can work with your facilities team and members of this group to kind of get the needed information for your building to start putting together the heat pump quote comparison.
So I'm sorry, I felt like that was a little bit of cart before the horse. You're having me pick a contractor before I even know what I needed?
Well, your contractors can come out to perform the heat load calculation, again, depending on kind of what they develop, what they identify for the weatherization opportunities and how long that's going to take. If we want to kind of keep the ball rolling and they identify a smaller amount of opportunities, it may be possible to have the contractors out to do the manual N while that's underway.
Okay, because that's one of my things. I'm not sure we even understand what weatherization needs to be done.
Right.
Or what would be, what the best bang for the buck on weatherization would be, type of thing.
Sure.
And is that something that you help us with, or is that what I just relying on a contractor with?
So the weatherization will be through, as Matt mentioned, that goes through your heating sponsors. That will be through National Grid, your gas
Right.
sponsor. And they will send someone out to evaluate, do what we call an energy audit that will identify what opportunities for weatherization. And it could be something as simple as kind of weather stripping to prevent air leakage, or for insulation opportunities.
Okay, perfect. So that would be through the National Grid, and then your side more is on the HVACs, is upgrading
Yeah,
this, is evaluating the system that's in there today, and what would be necessary to upgrade to make it a efficient system for tomorrow.
Exactly. So once you have your contractors and we get the ball rolling with the manual ends, that's when we get all the information and start comparing those quotes and pairing the heat load calculations against each other, inputting all the information you have about your current systems, about your solar arrays, and that will let us do the kind of cost analysis as well.
Okay, so it's sounding to me like I need to, first thing step is getting with National Grid, but at the same time, I would like to keep the ball rolling with you guys, that we at least know what the system we have, feeling that weatherization will take place before we would be moving forward with any HVAC system. Understanding too that we don't really need to do the weatherization, but it's going to change the complexity, it's going to change the dynamics of the system if that is done.
Yes, depending on kind of what they identify and the scope of what they recommend. Yes, it may.
Right.
It could be possible that weatherization is required to get certain rebates or grants.
Chris, it is required for the green grant, but it's a
Okay.
matter of how much weatherization would be necessary for the green grant.
Right. Generally speaking, the it's always a win. You want to get building as tight as possible, put as much R value in there as possible. And that way your heat load calcs come back as low as possible, allowing you to use a smaller system in general and less energy over time.
Okay. Perfect.
And I'll just note that it's also 70% covered by the utility. So I believe
This is
anyway.
exactly what I do for work.
Ah, great.
Okay.
Great.
Excellent. Excellent. So, for next step for you guys, is it right now? In fact, I do have Chris Stevens. Chris, welcome to the team and all that stuff. I think he's our new facilities manager.
Thank you.
For the schools. And so is there something that you're going to need from Chris to kind of, I sent him the sheet, the website that you had sent me. And
Right.
I'm wondering if there's anything in particular or anything like that to kind of help move this along.
Yeah, so Alex can follow up. I know we have a pretty big group here, so we don't have to kind of go line by line on this very call, but that sheet has a table which Alex can review with you, Chris, and you two can decide whether that makes sense by email or maybe just a quick follow-up call. Essentially will be information about the building that will help us to kind of assess next steps.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, I know Chris is still drinking from the fire hose, and
Yeah.
you know, even trying to figure out where the stuff is half the
Right.
time, because he's 3 people removed from the last person that actually had things in order. So
I know.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I'm sure it's a lot to kind of dig out from. So, if that needs to happen by email and kind of a piecemeal process, that's absolutely fine with us as well.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Yes.
understand. Okay, excellent. So I'm like I say, I didn't, for you guys, like I said, the weatherization was a little bit of a tossing it in there, but I know it's necessary for the green grant, but the bigger thing is obviously your end of the system is going to be the larger expense. And that's why that's the one where I think that the group that's on here, that's what we really need to understand. We want to be ahead of the game and to be able to really be able to go in with exactly what we want, not relying on a contractor to tell us what they want. And that's what the exciting part is, for us. So we welcome the opportunity. I don't know if there's, I know some of the group jumped in late. I don't know if there's questions from any of, from yourself, Chris, or from Sue, Kate, or Sue at all.
Yeah, I wasn't able to, what you sent me, I wasn't able to sign into it. I've been getting a lot of that lately.
Okay, yeah, we may have to give you permission.
Yeah, I don't think I have a lot of the permissions yet, so.
And that's maybe a good follow-up question is who should be kind of looped in throughout the process? Obviously, the two of you can kind of work together on the data input, but as we get kind of later stage in planning the weatherization and kind of getting quotes from contractors, should it be this entire group? Is there?
Yeah, it's going to be a small group. It's going to, Chris is basically going to be one of the key points, but we'll definitely be helping him. When it comes to to find the contractor and things like that and everything like that. There's also another Chris that is involved on the town side.
Okay, great.
So we'll make
we
it
can
easy
follow up
for
with
you.
on the information
You
list. Yeah,
just,
two
you guys
Chris's,
just have to scream out Chris and somebody's going to answer.
one of the two of them. Perfect. Okay, great. Well, Alex will be involved. We will also have Paul from our engineering side involved on the quote comparison part of it. But Chris, Alex can be a resource, for kind of questions throughout the whole process.
Okay, so Elsa, can I ask a favor then? Could you throw a quick email like hello with Alex's email on there? I'll forward it to Chris with you guys still on copy.
Great.
And that way everybody has that kumbaya moment.
Great.
Okay.
And then, we can get you guys started tomorrow with figuring out who is your National Grid representative to get you scheduled on the weatherization audit.
Perfect. Excellent.
Um,
All right.
Yeah, that was my biggest question is who do I send this report to? So Ilse, will you connect me or I could send my email right now?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So we'll send an email out, Dave, and get the kind of the correct contacts sorted out and then get our distributions put together.
Perfect. That's what I figured. I'm gathering yourself as more of my point. I'm looking at it as I'll be your point, and then we'll make sure we get the folks because I'm trying to unlike this call, I'm trying to keep it small for
Excellent.
the folks that are copied on everything. Need to know basis, right? And that's it.
Yes.
Definitely.
Great. Well, we're looking forward to getting started on the project with you.
Excellent. We look forward to it. And I thank you. I thank you so much for time. Look forward to the email. School guys, I'm going to ask you to stay on for a few minutes if you could. And I'm going to let you guys enjoy your evening if you can.
Great.
Great.
Thank you all. Nice to meet you.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thanks all. Take care.
Enjoy. Thanks again. All right, guys. So you know what, our big thing, how do we stand?
So we had an emergency meeting with the school committee after having a meeting with the town manager and the chair of the finance committee, the chair of the school committee, and the select board last Friday. So the emergency meeting tonight so that the school committee could take an official vote to withdraw the capital projects that were slated to be part of the town manager's capital plan for the town meeting in just a couple of weeks and replace that with an equal dollar amount to go toward this mini split project down at the primary school.
Excellent.
So that plus a small delta will be hopefully resolved after town meeting, and as long as that capital plan amended is approved at town meeting, we're good to go.
Okay. All right. So I do have one thing though. I'd like us to see about, they showed us a find a contractor site there. And I'd like us to investigate another couple of contractors. Because I don't think it affect us. It's not going to, it might affect a little bit on things, but my concern is that this contractor never brought this up in the first place. And, you know, this is something that every contractor in the state that does state things should have known about when it came to the rebates, incentives, and things of that. And so I'd like to, especially because you're going to be as we look at it, I think Sue could definitely think the last conversation we had with him, he was very wishy-washy as to what the cost would be. You know, basically the system he quoted is not available anymore. He's going to have to do something different and And I'm like, you know, we've all dealt with those guys at our house and they never give me that warm and fuzzy that there won't be those amendments to the Constitution, as they say.
Nope, totally get that. Sue and I will have to get working on it if we're gonna have to bid this out. I will say that a valid concern, I think, was raised with you know, new companies bidding, falling within this this cost range due to the potential impact for all the tariffs. We just don't know what that's going to do to total cost on parts and everything else. So we can certainly pursue it, and maybe it comes up that we get a better outcome. But I do think that potentially there's a chance that it might come in higher, which I don't think would surprise anyone, because every time we take months to get to a project and then we get updated costs, it's always something higher. So we can certainly pursue that.
Okay.
There's a
Yeah, I'd appreciate that, because I look at that because look, I think the present contractor is going to get hit with tariffs too.
That's what I was
Yep.
going to say. How
Right.
locked in is
Yep.
his contract? Because I wouldn't be surprised if they already throw that out there, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
the
So
list
Yeah,
that
so
they
Dave-
provide.
I'd like to look, you know, it'd definitely be something to look at, because who knows? Maybe there was a lot of things in there that I wasn't, you know, that seemed a little strange. And that's the only thing. So we're happy to help you walk through that process and go through the process. I think the big thing you have is that today you have an idea of what the system could look like from them. And that's further along than when you first went for that bid. You know, when we first started this process. And I think that goes a long way to be able to make sure you're looking at apples and apples versus an apples and oranges.
Dave, through you to Dr. Burnham, do we at this point, that $483,000 figure, do we have a commitment to that number or no? If we don't, then we could be more than $170,000 short.
Yeah, and if we are more than $170,000 short, we're out of luck. There's not going to be any more money. And we'll have to cross that bridge when we get to it, I guess. I would say that the cost, my sense from what Dr. Gilson has related to me, is that the vendor is reluctant to say a hard yes, this is our price, we're locked in, but they are also not saying, oh no, this price is not valid anymore, it's going to be a good bit more, and giving us any indication, you know, to what extent that cost might have increased. So I don't know if they're trying to sort of play the middle here and hope that they can just land the deal, or what, I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
But they have
Dave-
been reluctant to commit or say otherwise. So
Yeah.
hard to say.
I get that. I had another thought I was going to mention. Oh, the other only concern I have, and you know, we're going to need to be sure if we go for another quote or two from other vendors, we need to be sure they're vendors that understand the requirements of the grant that we've already got. I.e., the equipment's got to be on their list, and there's other criteria that's got to be met. You know, we don't want to waste our time with a vendor that's using a brand that's not on the list, because we're
Right.
just, as you know, we're totally wasting our time then.
Yeah. So Dave, on that front, I know you might have jumped in a little bit. the group that we were showing you before, but on the Mass Save site, they have a find a contractor, find a contractor thing. And all of those contractors are fully aware of what's necessary to get the rebates for Mass Save. And then it's just a matter of making sure I would work with Matt to O'Keefe to make sure they knew what was necessary to tie it into the old system so we can still receive the rebates on the present equipment.
Yeah, I'm more concerned that we don't shoot ourselves in the foot with the $200,000 we already have. You know, we change vendors and something gets changed that Green Communities doesn't approve, that money's going to go away.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be very careful. That's all. I'm always that way with unknowns. And I agree. Any contractor that is that wishy-washy is going to hit us with a 25% or more increase when we actually ask for a contracted number.
Well,
That's my take.
I think that what we would do is reach out to the town manager tomorrow morning to talk about next steps moving forward, because whatever those steps might be, we've got to move quickly.
Yep, I agree.
Because if
And
this project needs to
Right.
be done this summer, it needs to get underway late June, early July. It's got to be pushed through. It's got to be done by mid-August before school opens for us, but also so that we can tie everything up in a bow and have it all done so that you're all ready to pursue the next round.
Dave, do you remember the date that we're required to have the closeout documents to Green Communities to qualify for October?
I'm going to
I
say
think
it's in
that's a pretty
September.
tight schedule.
Yeah, it's in September. It's September.
I want to say it was September. We were trying to get things wrapped up in order to be able to do the grant round in
For
October
October,
this
right.
past year, right?
Yep, that
Correct.
sounds right. I just want to make sure that we've got an eye on the targets, that's all.
Yeah, and like for us, like I said, we would need to get it all done before school opens that last week in August. So we would have to be working on a really tight timeline anyway.
Yep, great.
Okay. Excellent. Excellent.
Thank you, everybody that's putting additional energy into this.
Yes. Yes. And by the way, that I think the green communities themselves will work with us as much as whatever we decide to do. It's just a matter of, in the end, their biggest thing was, does the systems qualify? And does the final energy assessment qualify? And they've said, but so far we're good on that. Okay. And Chris, I'm going to hook you up with Matt O'Keefe.
Yep.
And also you'll get hooked up with the gentleman from National Grid, but both of them have a free program for you that you go to a course and learn all about the energy management systems.
Okay, perfect.
So so that you don't have to call in the third party every time you have to push a button.
Yeah,
type of
right.
thing.
Yep,
Okay.
perfect.
But in general, just they should be a great asset to you as you go forward.
Yeah, fantastic.
And,
All right,
and
I'm just
I'll
letting
just say that just after 4 days on the job, I think that Chris is going to be a great asset to the school department and the town. So
Thank you,
All right.
Dr. Byrne.
think we finally landed in good hands here.
Excellent. And I
Thank
think you
you.
guys need to understand. I think you guys hopefully will understand that probably well over 60% of the money that we've ever gotten, I'd say closer to 70-80% has gone towards the schools over the years.
That's
So-
appreciated.
And that was
Yeah.
mainly because the facilities manager was active with the group. So when we were looking for grant opportunities, he was there pushing his stuff. So
Yep.
feel free. Feel free.
Yeah, if you all need anything, just give me a call. I'm there.
Well, same here. If you need, just let us know.
You
So
got it.
like I said, we did the refrigeration units were part of an energy audit. They have these building energy audits. I felt Turkey, the feeling of the group was Turkey Hill made the most sense, especially with everything going on and the conversations about Turkey Hill. So, but if there's other buildings that you guys want to do this with, let us know.
Yep.
I didn't
Sounds
think,
good.
I know, I didn't think TC Passios made sense today to do an energy audit on it.
Now,
Weatherization might be a tough one there, huh? So,
Oh,
I
no,
was
we
able
can come up
yesterday
with,
going through
we
there
can
for
come up with
sure.
$10 million worth of weatherization easily for that building.
Yes, understand, but getting that through town budget was my thing, so, yeah. Excellent, excellent. Brooke, Kim, Chris, Matt, any questions or anything like that, or any thoughts?
I had, the only thought I had earlier was, and you had brought this back up, Dave, was that we stick with the contractors on the approved contractor list because they generally know how to work well within the system. There's things that they would include that other contractors might overlook. And using a non-approved contractor, I've seen people run into trouble in the past doing that.
Which reminds me, I appreciate that. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump around, but one of the questions that was thrown around was the contract we have on the solar panels on Turkey Hill. Do we know who's that with and what the deal is with that yet?
Correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Gilson, but that company went bankrupt and there's no company that has ownership of those at this point. Is that right?
Yeah, that is my understanding from Chris Ruth, the town facilities manager. So the
That
contract,
one changed hands several times. Different companies took over. But our understanding is that the last go around, the
there's
company
nobody.
is no more and no one assumed that. So, we were at end of contract on that anyway.
So what happens now with those?
Have
Go
the
ahead,
town
Susan.
take them by eminent domain, manage it ourselves. It's not difficult.
I do believe that they're still generating net metering credits for us. It's just there's no company that
That owns
that
the
owns them.
panels that we need to work with.
So, but how do we know that the net metering credit we're getting is correct?
Well, that's an excellent question.
Okay,
We've been
And-
trying to figure that
Right.
out for
And that-
both of our solar.
And that may be something that Chris can help us out with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think it needs to be
Doc-
like an
Dr.
audit done on them or whatnot and see what they're really putting out.
Yeah,
What we're
Dr.
getting.
Burnham, Chris might want to be introduced to George from White Smart also,
Okay,
because Chris Ruth has him involved in trying to sort out the entire solar credits and allocations and so on and so forth, because the whole allocation system is messed up within the town.
Yep.
One of the things he mentioned to me at one point, the public safety building was sitting on a $30,000 credit balance. And you know what your bills are at the schools, with huge amounts you're paying out, and we got thousands of dollars in credits sitting on other buildings.
right, because
all
they're
that-
allocated just for that one building.
Correct, right.
Yep. No, it's been a source of frustration for us to try to sort through all of it, to be sure that we're not somehow getting the short end of the stick.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's been an exercise for sure, trying to get to the bottom of all of it. And I will
Yep.
say that we did have a pretty lengthy meeting with Chris Ruth and Chris Stevens, our new director here, last week. Was
okay.
that last week? Yeah, that was last week. Today's only Monday. So they are already really kind of gelling, and I think they're going to work fantastically
Yeah, it's gonna
together.
be good. Yeah, we're gonna get along just good.
Yeah,
really
it's
good.
almost like they had been working together for years, the way they
Right.
were just
Mm.
interacting. So I think it's very promising.
Excellent, excellent. I mean, that's the biggest thing for us is just making sure, we're one town.
Yeah, I mean, we're all on
One
the same
goal.
team.
Yep.
Yeah. And that's really the whole thing for us, but okay. So Chris, I'm away for a couple of weeks, but I'll be back after Easter. I'll be back. So I'll make an appointment with you to come and say hello and
Yeah,
kind of walk
definitely.
through a few things. I know we have a website to look at the panels and look at the energy thing. I can try to find out whatever happened with that as well. But there's been you know, we'll probably have it where it's, nothing was updated for a
Yeah,
year
right.
on things, you know.
Yeah.
I don't
okay.
think it was folks' priority, for a couple of years.
Yeah, right.
Did I say
Tim
that
McKenna might have
diplomatically?
some info for you on that too, Chris. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, sounds good.
Excellent, excellent. I appreciate the news. It was exciting for us. I know there was a lot of discussion, and I know you guys really want to get this project done as we do in a timely fashion. The really exciting part is that we can move forward. I'm gonna just speak for myself. I can let the group speak for themselves, but my feeling is I'd rather you get the project done and that the project's done correctly than worrying about whether we're applying in September or whether I'm applying in the spring for my next round. Okay, I'll say it that way because this project just has to be done correctly because it hinges on the rest of this. It hinges on whether that system's good for only another 5 years or another 15 years. And I'd rather see another 15 years than 5 years.
Agreed. I
Yep.
think we need to see another 15 years.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the project was supposedly good for 17 years of lifespan. So that would
Okay.
be even better.
Even better, even better. Well, so that'd be fantastic. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments from the group before I'm going to let these guys enjoy their evening, since they've been through enough meetings too?
I just want to say thank you, Dave, for
Same.
everything that you have done to move this forward. So
No, thank the group. The group
Yeah.
has really worked hard. Is there too?
Good. And Dave Passios, thank you for your continued wisdom that you offered.
I've only gotten a little bit of pushback from, what are you doing? You know, you're
I'm waiting
not a
to-
registered voter, you're not a taxpayer, but you're still involved.
I'm waiting
Um,
to see.
and
Yeah, I'm waiting
My
to see
comment to all of you and my answer to the question that I just posed from other people is that you can take Dave out of Lunenburg, but you can't take Lunenburg out of Dave.
We're wondering what he's going to do come May with town meeting.
That's up in the air. That's going to be a 24-hour decision based on, believe it or not, weather.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
yeah, nobody sponsored him. No.
Oh, I've got 12 sponsors already lined up. That's not a
Yeah.
problem.
You know me, Dave. I just kid with you. I figured.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
Okay, excellent. All right, guys. Thanks again. Have a great evening.
Thank you very
Yeah, it
much.
was nice
Appreciate
meeting
all the
everybody, too.
support.
You got it. Thanks, guys.
Good luck, Chris.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Thanks, guys. Okay, I'm gonna make this easy. I heard from Tyler, no update on Styrofoam. What he's looking for is he's going for a grant to try to get this thing kicked off because we have to get that container and things like that. Okay, so no real update from him on it. Other than that, I'm gonna try to make this quick and easy. Kim, you sent out meeting minutes.
I did for March 3rd. I sent them out in the email, maybe like a day or two after.
Yep.
I didn't hear
Yep,
anything
so
back about any changes, so
Anybody else have any issues with them?
No, I thought it looked good. I'll move that we approve them.
Okay. I'm gonna throw a second since Chris was missing on that one. So I'll throw a second. We'll just do the vote and we'll start. Chris, your thought?
It sounds like a good project to me, and so
Okay. All right. Kim,
aye.
Matt?
I
All right, and I give an aye, so those are approved.
Great, I'll send those over to Ellen.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Other than that, this was the biggest thing. So I'm gonna fill you guys in. Dave already knows. What happened is that the schools, obviously the schools are hurting for money, as everybody in town knows, right? So they were looking at tabling this project.
Mm.
And the other side, oops, hold on. I got Dave here. He dropped off and then he dropped back on. So let me give him a minute. So the idea was that they were thinking about what would happen if they tabled this, changed the scope of the project or tabled it, okay? And they were nice. I didn't want to get everybody involved, but they had, Dr. Gilson set up a meeting with Unitil, the contractor, and Green Committee, with Kelly, to discuss this. And during that meeting, what Kelly mentioned, and it wasn't untrue, is that they had till 2026 or 2027 to close out the project. So the thought was, oh, we'll keep it, we'll just put this on the back burner for now, and we'll do it when we have some money. And that's when we had several conversations with the school committee directly to say, look, guys, you do that and you tie the hands of the Green Committee from being able to apply for any grants till this one's closed. So we've explained to them what's going on. We've explained to them in emails, had lengthy conversations. And today you heard the words that they're going to find the money and continue with this project. Now, the problem we have is the contract that they've been quoting with every time is, I got to send it out to quote again. Every time there's a comment. And he's already said that what has happened is since he first quoted, and now they've changed the refrigerant from grape juice to cranberry juice. I really don't know, but they changed the refrigerant. So he's telling us that the company that he uses, which is Daikin, they don't have the system that he specified anymore. This was using one main unit for every 2 heads. And they don't have that size right now available in the new cranberry juice. So he was going to have to go re-quote. And at that point, if he's re-quoting, my feeling, and this guy has never mentioned to the school that if these things were integrated with the present system, you're up for multiple rebates, even the mass save rebates. So it threw up a red flag to me to say, let's look for another contract at some point. And that's why I'm saying is I'm not going to worry. I'd rather not be concerned with having this installed by August as to having the right system installed. That's for the school, type of thing. We all know that there's many people who make mini splits. And if you ever saw the list is probably, I think, 7 pages long of what qualifies. So it's not that hard to find a system that qualifies. It's harder to find a contractor that has the best interest at heart. So
Would
I kind
changing
of wanted to
the
do that. I didn't really have everybody involved because, these meetings were thrown together kind of halfway last minute. And there was a lot of folks on here, and it was mainly, Dr. Gilson's trying to get this done, but she's also trying to balance a budget with a lot of shortfalls. So, her first thought was, oh, it's a $480,000. Well, it's a $170,000 project. I can kick off the list. But it was also, having to point out to the school committee that there's $330,000 that is getting free out of this. Well, $310,000 free out of this $480,000 project. You don't want to give that up, was really the key. So just wanted you guys to make sure you guys knew what was going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Dave, a long time ago, there was a conversation in a meeting, and I can't tell you who was there for sure, but I know Dr. Burnham was the one that mentioned it. I mean, this 1-for-1 change is not new to me at all. It was way before we even put in the application that change in the design of the units was at least mentioned. And as far as I understood, the numbers that we put into the grant application reflected the 1-for-1 units, not the 1-for-2 units, because that had already gone by the wayside. So I don't know, we're mixing things up here. Even some of the comments, if you get a chance to watch the school committee meeting, that emergency meeting this evening, I chose to leave it alone, but you know, there's a little bit of back and forth that's not accurate.
Okay.
In any case, we need to get to a point where we've got a good number. And I think if the project comes in much higher than a delta, with a delta of much higher than $170,000, I think this committee needs to think very strongly about whether we return the $200,000 and go through another application process in October.
By the way, Dave, I agree 100%. I mean, you know, there was a lot of work done to get that number as low as 170. And it definitely, if the number comes in much higher, well, first of all, it's not going to get funded if it's much higher than 170. And I mean, we can look at other things, but that's really the key is going to be this whole project, not just piecemealing it because
yeah, I have no desire, as the rest of you have stated and the school committee stated, I have no desire in kicking this thing to the curb. But
right.
if it keeps growing out of control like it has, you know, that's why we're in the position we are with some of the proposals that are coming to town meeting now. They've been put off for so long that the escalators have been way more than even the estimated escalators. So it just goes up and it goes up and it goes up. So if we can't cleanly move this project forward, and I agree, even if we get pushed off to spring of 27, but if it's looking like that's even questionable with the numbers running out of control, then we got to cut our losses, turn that money back and reapply for something we know is going to happen. And I think that's the important part for you guys to be aware of going forward, is that if everybody's going to put all this energy into applying for a grant, whatever's the match is going to be required, or the balance above the maximum they're going to get through the grant, has got to be committed before or at exactly the same time as the grant is applied for, or you're going to run into this continuously. I think the town manager has put the grant writing services back into the budget for $50,000. And part of the intent there is to help not only get grants, but to manage grants once they're awarded. And she has some other ideas too. I've had personal conversations with her about other options for more support that's very inexpensive.
So do I need to sell you like a 10-foot by 10-foot square on my property so that now you're a landowner in Lunenburg?
Yeah, well, it might have to be a little bit bigger than that because it needs to have a dwelling that I can sleep in. Up here, there is no limit on the minimum size of a occupied dwelling. In Massachusetts, I'm pretty sure there's a minimum size.
Okay.
So the plot would have to be big enough to put the minimum size bedroom,
Yeah.
one room. That's all I require. And, you know, once I lay my head there for a few days, I'm domiciled back in Lunenburg.
There you
And
go.
we go from there. But,
Yes.
you know, at this point, I'm a member of the public and I'm a member of this committee legally. So, you know, I don't plan to give up my input unless things change. I was real concerned that the governor might not extend the remote access to open meetings, and that would have been it. I would have been done. But I'm good
Right.
on that matter till what, 27 or so.
Yeah. You and the conservation kid, man, I don't know what they would do.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Excellent.
So,
All right.
so I'm done rambling. If there's anything else we needed to talk about.
That's okay. So guys,
Oh, Dave, I did have one question. What buildings were you guys talking about? I I watched part of the school committee meeting, then I jumped into our meeting. For the audits that you guys were talking about earlier there with Matt and Elsa and so
So
on.
it's going to be on the school side, it's Turkey Hill,
Yep.
and on the town side, it's the public safety bill.
Okay. Okay.
So I'm
Um,
figuring the public safety building is the next building that's what, 20 years old?
Yep.
And it's gonna need something, and nobody's paid attention to that building either for years.
Right. Right. Just to add a little piece of something, couple conversations that I had at the MMA conference a year ago, January, with 2 or 3 different people in the 495 belt area that at the time you guys were talking about geothermal when I clicked in. And most of those were saying that the incentives that were available a year and a half ago were more conducive to new construction than they were to existing construction. And the incentives were incredible.
Yes.
As long as you did it again the way you needed to do it for the incentives.
Yeah.
So I just add that as context.
Nope, understand, agree. Okay, so, I appreciate that, Dave. So guys, that's about all I had for tonight. I'm looking at my time and my 90 minutes is up, so I'm waiting for somebody to say something here right about now.
Yeah, Dave, what do you think about May? Are we gonna wait till after town meeting to meet or what do you think? I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, but
I mean, I consider that first Monday in May to getting together, but is that after town meeting?
no,
So we can.
I don't believe so.
We could talk about
Oh, it
that
is.
getting together then, you know.
Is it?
Yeah, town meeting's the
Okay,
3rd,
'cause
Saturday, and 5th is
Town
Monday,
meeting is
right?
So yeah, so I'd say it's
oh,
after.
okay, okay. I was thinking
On Cinco de
backwards. Yep.
Mayo.
Yep.
Oh, so does
Oh,
anybody?
that's right.
Anybody have a problem with meeting on Cinco de Mayo?
Can I bring my
could-
margarita?
I was gonna say, we need it. We need it Rio Bravo or something that'll work.
Right? I was gonna say
Yes.
the back room of Ixtapa, as long as I can have an internet connection, it is a Zoom meeting then, right? So we're all
Yeah.
set, you know?
Yeah, hey,
We'll
hey,
see
Dave,
you there.
yeah. I know you're just keeping it on the agenda for, until we do something with it, but the committee configuration, based on what Annie sent us there a couple of weeks ago, and Tyler, we've got 3 people sitting in the wings waiting for some action on whether or not we're going to appoint the 2 positions, associate positions. Although I do think that they really should be alternates rather than associates.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I agree, Dave. So if you can, throw me a quick email, refresher of, Annie and just so I have everybody. And
Okay,
I'm gonna
just so you're aware, we don't have Annie anymore.
I know, yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I only bring it up because we still need to move forward with it, but it's probably going to end up being on the town manager's plate or somebody, Julie, I don't know who it'll end up being, because the select board will, once they get past elections, then they will start into reappointing season. And
Right.
I think that would be the time to ask for the adjustment to the membership of the committee, and fill all the seats.
Yep, I'm with you. I'm with you. And I definitely believe that, yeah, having it as an alternate just changes the voting for everybody. So it's easier.
Right, right.
Okay.
You've seen how that works out for you guys in zoning board of appeals.
Yeah,
And I think all committees should be set up that way so that they virtually should almost never have a problem with quorum.
sounds perfect. Okay, and yeah, my head's getting a little bit better, so I'll be ready to tackle that in May with everything.
Okay, I'm done
Okay.
talking.
You got it. All right, so on that note, anybody want to make a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Any second?
Second,
Excellent. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Roll call
Aye.
vote.
aye.
Oh,
Aye.
sorry, roll call. All right, Passios,
I'm,
Snyder,
Aye.
Duffy,
Aye.
Holden,
Aye.
and I for Black. All right, guys. Enjoy it. Sorry I missed the snow, and we'll talk to you guys soon.
Yeah,
Okay?
night,
good meeting.
everybody.
Great.
Good night,
Thank
everybody.
you. Good night.